Loneliness is often misunderstood. Many assume it is about being alone, about the absence of company, ladder, or conversation. But the truth is, loneliness can exist even in the most crowded spaces. You can sit in a room full of people and still feel unseen. You can be surrounded by voices, yet feel that not one truly understands the rhythm of your heart. That's because loneliness is not about the number of people around you. It's about the depth of the connection you share with them. When connection is missing, even the smallest interactions feel empty. The words exchanged sound polite, but hollow. The smiles offered are kind, but fleeting. And the heart begins to ache not from isolation, but from invisibility. It's not the silence that hurts. It's the feeling that your voice doesn't echo anywhere, that your presence doesn't quite register. You exist, but you're not felt. That's the quiet pain of disconnection. The woman who feels unseen often carries this weight daily. She might be the one who always shows up, does her best, keeps her promises, and supports others, yet somehow receives little of it in return. Her strength becomes her disguise. People assume she's fine because she looks composed, but behind her calm exterior lies a longing, a deep desire for someone to notice without her having to say a word. To ask not, "How are you?" but "How are you, really?" In our modern world, this kind of loneliness has become common. We have more ways to connect than ever before. Messages, stories, feeds, calls, yet we rarely pause long enough to listen, to feel, to see. We've mistaken attention for connection, a like for love, a comment for care. We are wired together through screens, but disconnected in spirit. And that disconnection has left many, especially women who give endlessly, feeling unseen and unheard. When we lose genuine connection, life begins to lose color. Days blend together, routines replace relationships, and the heart starts to numb. The woman with no friends isn't always sad. Sometimes she's just tired of trying to fit into spaces that never made room for her. Tired of giving energy to people who never reciprocate. Tired of pretending that being independent means she doesn't crave companionship. Yet in that loneliness, there is also a strange kind of awakening. She starts to see herself more clearly. Without the noise of shallow relationships, she begins to understand who she truly is. She learns that her worth isn't defined by the people who stay or leave. She learns to find comfort in her own company. She learns that being unseen by others doesn't mean she's invisible. It means she's still waiting to be seen by the right ones. But the ache remains. Because human beings are wired for connection. No matter how strong, independent, or resilient she becomes, she still needs belonging. We all do. We need a place where we can exhale without fear, where our words don't have to be filtered, where someone says, "I get it," and actually means it. That's not weakness. That's humanity. Connection is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. When connection returns, even in small doses, the world feels lighter. A genuine conversation can restore what years of isolation eroded. A single act of empathy can reignite hope. The presence of one person who truly listens can make someone feel alive again. That's the power of being seen. It breathes life back into the soul. Loneliness, then, is not the enemy. It's a signal, a whisper from within that something essential is missing. It's an invitation to reconnect not just with others, but with yourself. It's a reminder that you deserve depth, not surface-level interaction. That you deserve to be seen, not just watched. That you deserve to be known, not merely noticed. And when you understand that loneliness is not the absence of people, but the absence of connection, you begin to approach relationships differently. You stop chasing attention and start seeking presence. You stop collecting acquaintances and start nurturing meaning. You stop trying to be seen by everyone and start being known by a few. Because in the end, that's what heals, not the crowd, but the connection. Modern life has changed the way we define connection. We live in an era where visibility is mistaken for intimacy and where popularity is confused with belonging. We've built entire worlds within our screens, filled with faces, voices, and notifications, yet somehow we've never felt more alone. What was once a warm exchange of energy between two people has turned into a digital performance. A highlight reel curated for approval rather than understanding. We no longer ask, "How do you feel?" We ask, "Did you see my post?" Every scroll feeds us the illusion of closeness. We see updates, photos, and stories that make us believe we know each other, but we only know fragments, the polished parts that people choose to show. True connection is messy, raw, and imperfect. It exists in the unspoken, in the pauses, in the late-night conversations when guards are down. But in this fast-paced, filtered world, we've forgotten how to sit in silence with someone, to listen without checking our phones, to simply be present. This constant flood of digital interaction has numbed us to genuine emotion. We respond with emojis instead of empathy, with quick reactions instead of meaningful replies. It's easier, faster, safer, but it's also emptier. We've trained ourselves to skim through lives instead of entering them. And in doing so, we've lost the very essence of what it means to connect the vulnerability that comes from showing our true selves. The irony is that technology was designed to bring us closer. It promised to erase distance, to connect hearts across continents. And in many ways, it did. But connection without depth is like a bridge without support. It looks strong from afar, but it can't hold weight. We've created a culture where being connected doesn't mean being known, it means being visible. And visibility without understanding leaves us hollow. People now measure their worth by numbers, likes, followers, comments, as if connection can be quantified. The more we chase these digital affirmations, the less we recognize the real thing. The woman who posts her smiling photos may still go home feeling unseen. The man with thousands of followers might not have one person to call when he feels lost. The digital applause fades quickly, and when the noise stops, the silence feels heavier than ever. Somewhere along the way, we began to mistake performance for presence. We've learned to showcase emotions instead of sharing them. We've learned to announce our struggles online, but not confide them to anyone offline. We've become experts at curating connection, but not at cultivating it. The moments that used to bind us, eye contact, touch, shared laughter, have become optional, almost outdated. We no longer linger in each other's company. We multitask through it. The danger in this shift is subtle but deep. When every interaction becomes transactional, when we engage to be seen rather than to see, we lose empathy. We forget that connection is not about impressing, it's about understanding. It's not about showing up perfectly, it's about showing up honestly. And when that honesty disappears, so does the trust that allows relationships to grow roots. This lack of depth affects how we see others and ourselves. When people stop responding meaningfully, we start believing we are not worth the effort. We internalize the superficiality around us and mistake it for truth. We begin to shrink emotionally, editing ourselves to fit what the world rewards: brevity, beauty, and polish. Instead of authenticity, depth, and emotion, it's no wonder so many feel unseen, even while being constantly watched. The tragedy is that we remember connection differently than we practice it. We remember it as warmth, the sound of someone's laughter, the touch of a comforting hand, the comfort of being known without words. Yet, we practice it through screens that separate us. We substitute presence with availability, believing that just because we can reach someone instantly, we are connected to them meaningfully. But accessibility is not intimacy. To rediscover real connection, we must unlearn this confusion between attention and presence. We must remember what it feels like to sit across from someone and listen without distraction, to ask questions that go beyond the surface, to share moments without the pressure of capturing them. Because in the end, it's not attention that fills us, it's understanding. And the more we chase attention, the further we drift from the one thing we crave most to be truly known. A woman with no friends is often misunderstood. People look at her and see emptiness where there is, in fact, quiet strength. They see absence, not realizing the depth of her presence. To many, friendship defines worth. The more people you have around you, the more successful you seem socially. But this woman challenges that belief. Her solitude is not a sign of failure, it's a reflection of endurance. She has learned how to stand when others might have fallen, how to move forward without applause, and how to find peace in her own company when no one else shows up. She has likely walked through seasons of betrayal, of outgrowing people who no longer aligned with her truth, of realizing that not all company is companionship. She has learned the painful art of letting go, not because she stopped caring, but because she refused to shrink herself to be accepted. Each time she was left behind, she rebuilt herself quietly, piece by piece, without resentment. Her solitude became a mirror, revealing her own strength and resilience in ways that friendship sometimes conceals. In a world that glorifies social circles, she exists as a reminder that solitude can be sacred. While others rush to fill their days with people, She has learned to fill hers with purpose. She doesn't measure her life by how many people text her back or invite her out. She measures it by how true she remains to herself. And in that truth lies power, a kind of power that doesn't depend on validation, attention, or belonging. Her strength isn't loud, but it's steady. It's the kind that comes from surviving heartbreaks without an audience. Still, her independence is often misread. People assume she doesn't want connection or that she chooses isolation out of pride, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes she's simply grown tired of shallow exchanges. She's tired of being surrounded by people who talk but don't listen, who take but don't give, who appear when it's convenient but disappear when she needs them most. It's not that she doesn't value friendship, it's that she values authenticity more. There are moments when her solitude feels heavy. She feels the weight of silence pressing on her chest, the ache of wanting to share her thoughts, but having no one to receive them. She misses the small things, laughter that fills a room, shared secrets, the comfort of knowing someone understands without explanation. And yet, she doesn't let that emptiness define her. Instead, she channels it into self-discovery, into creativity, into becoming the kind of person she once hoped to find in others. Her resilience was not born from choice alone, but from necessity. She learned that sometimes you must be your own friend before anyone else can be. She found strength in her own words, comfort in her own presence, and healing in her own silence. The woman with no friends is not a symbol of sadness. She's proof that solitude can coexist with joy, that peace can exist without company, and that self-respect can outweigh social validation. Her story is not about what she lacks, but about what she's gained. In the absence of friends, she has gained clarity, the ability to discern what kind of energy she will and won't allow into her life. She has gained depth, the capacity to feel, to think, to reflect beyond the surface. And she has gained freedom, the rare kind that comes when you stop chasing acceptance and start living authentically. She knows who she is, and that knowledge is her anchor. Still, the world often measures her through its narrow lens. People whisper, wondering why she's alone, assuming her solitude must be a flaw to fix rather than a strength to understand. They don't see the peace she carries within, the confidence that grows from self-reliance, the calm that comes from not needing constant reassurance. They don't see that her life, though quiet, is deeply rooted in purpose. She has learned that solitude teaches lessons friendship never could. It teaches patience, the ability to sit with discomfort without trying to escape it. It teaches awareness, to see who she truly is when no one is watching. And it teaches courage to face herself, her fears, and her truth without distraction. These are not lessons taught by crowds. They are learned in the stillness of being alone. So while others might see a woman with no friends as incomplete, she knows better. She understands that friendships are meaningful when they're genuine, not when they're many. She knows that it's better to walk alone in truth than to stand surrounded by people who don't see her worth. She carries herself not as someone lacking connection, but as someone who has mastered the hardest connection of all, the one with herself. Silence has a way of shaping people. When someone spends enough time unseen, they begin to observe the world differently. The woman who has walked through loneliness doesn't just endure her quiet. She studies it, listens to it, learns from it. Over time, she develops an understanding that those who have always been surrounded by noise may never reach. She begins to see the pain behind other people's smiles, the exhaustion behind their laughter, the uncertainty behind their confidence. Her solitude gives her sight, not the kind that looks at appearances, but the kind that recognizes emotion. Empathy, for her, is not a concept, it's a reflex. Because she knows what it feels like to be overlooked. She notices the small signs others miss. The way someone hesitates before answering a question. The way their voice wavers when they say, "I'm fine." The way they avoid eye contact just long enough to hide what they're really feeling. She doesn't need people to tell her they're hurting. She can sense it. Loneliness has made her fluent in the quiet language of emotion, a language spoken not in words, but in pauses and silences. Patience becomes her companion. Having felt what it's like to wait for someone who never comes, she never rushes others to open up. She gives space without judgment, time without pressure. She knows that some wounds can't be spoken immediately, that healing is not a schedule but a journey. While others grow impatient, when someone doesn't respond right away, she simply waits, not because she's indifferent, but because she understands how long it can take to find the courage to be honest. Her own solitude taught her that kind of grace. There's a certain tenderness in people who have known loneliness. It's in the way they listen, not just to words, but to tone. It's in the way they offer help without making others feel small. It's in the way they show up quietly, consistently, without demanding recognition. The woman who has walked alone knows that the greatest form of kindness is presence, not the loud kind that seeks attention, but the quiet kind that simply stays. She knows how to be gentle with others because life has not always been gentle with her. Authenticity becomes her compass. She has no patience for small talk that hides deeper truths, no interest in friendships that exist only for convenience. Having lived without constant validation, she values honesty over approval. When she speaks, it's not to impress, but to connect. When she listens, it's not to respond, but to understand. She's not interested in surface, level connection anymore. She craves the kind of bond that feels like truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Her empathy doesn't make her soft. It makes her wise. She knows how fragile people can be, and she treats that fragility with care. She knows that everyone carries something unseen. A memory, a scar, a silence. So she moves through the world with awareness, choosing kindness not because it's easy, but because she knows how much it matters. Every time she offers understanding to someone else, she's really offering it to the part of herself that once needed it too. In many ways, her loneliness has transformed into her strength. It has stripped away her assumptions about people and replaced them with understanding. It has taught her that everyone is fighting a battle they don't talk about. It has reminded her that the loudest voices often hide the deepest fears. And it has shown her that connection, when it finally happens, is sacred, something to nurture, not take for granted. She no longer fears vulnerability. Having spent time with her own pain, she understands that sharing it doesn't make her weak. When she opens up, she does so without pretense. Her stories come without embellishment, her feelings without filters. This honesty draws people in because authenticity is magnetic in a world full of masks. People find comfort in her presence because it feels real. And that realness is the rarest gift of all. Her empathy also protects her. It allows her to see the intentions behind people's actions. She can sense when someone's kindness is genuine and when it's performative. This awareness keeps her from falling into the same patterns that once left her hurt. Her heart remains open, but her boundaries are strong. Loneliness has not hardened her, it has refined her. She gives freely, but not blindly. Through silence, she has discovered a deeper form of connection, one that goes beyond words, beyond proximity, beyond performance. She knows now that empathy isn't something taught. It's something earned through experience, through the ache of wanting to be seen, and realizing that others want the same. And so she carries that understanding with her, moving through the world not as someone seeking attention, but as someone offering presence. Connection has always required intention. It is not something that simply appears. It's something that is built brick by brick through effort, patience, and presence. Yet in the chaos of daily life, people often forget that. They assume connection happens naturally, that friendship will bloom just because two people share space or common interests. But real connection demands more than proximity. It asks for awareness. It asks you to notice the small details, to remember what someone said last week, to care enough to follow up. It asks for energy that cannot be given half-heartedly. The woman who has felt unseen understands this truth deeply. She knows how rare it is for someone to reach out without being asked, how powerful it feels when someone chooses to notice you. That's why, when she connects, she does so intentionally. She doesn't reach out because it's expected. She reaches out because it matters. She doesn't talk just to fill silence. She speaks to create meaning. Every message, every call, every gesture carries weight because it's done with purpose. Intentional connection is an act of courage. It requires vulnerability because when you open the door to another person, you also open the possibility of rejection. To reach out first is to say, I see you, and to risk that they may not say it back. Many people avoid this risk by staying guarded, convincing themselves they're fine without anyone. But isolation isn't strength, it's protection disguised as independence. The woman who has learned the difference understands that connection requires bravery. The bravery to try, even when you're unsure of the outcome. When connection is intentional, it changes the way people interact. Instead of shallow conversations filled with empty words, there are exchanges that carry meaning. Instead of politeness that fades after small talk, there is sincerity that lingers long after the conversation ends. It's the difference between being heard and being understood, between being acknowledged and being valued. This kind of connection doesn't come easily. It takes time, attention, and consistency. But once it's built, it becomes something lasting. Intentional connection also means presence. It means putting away distractions, looking someone in the eye, and giving them your full attention. It means being willing to listen, not to respond, but to hear. In a world that thrives on multitasking, giving undivided attention is a rare and powerful gift. When someone feels truly listened to, they begin to trust again. They begin to open. They begin to heal. The woman who has spent time in silence knows that listening, real listening, can be more healing than any advice ever could. It's easy to say you care about people. It's harder to show it through action. Intention transforms words into movement. It turns, "Let's catch up sometime," into, "I'm free tomorrow. How about coffee?" It turns, "Thinking of you," into, "I stopped by to see how you're doing." Intentional connection doesn't rely on convenience. It relies on commitment. It's not about having time, but about making time. And in making that time, we communicate the message that everyone longs to hear you matter. The woman who has been alone understands how easily people drift apart when no one makes the effort to hold on. She's seen relationships fade not because of anger, but because of neglect. A lack of intention quietly dissolves even the strongest bonds. It happens when people stop reaching out, stop showing gratitude, stop doing the little things that say, "I still care." She knows that connection dies not in conflict, but in silence. That's why she values those who stay consistent, who show up even when it's inconvenient, who don't let distance become disconnection. Intention also requires honesty. You cannot build real connection by pretending to be someone you're not. The woman who has lived through isolation knows the pain of pretending, of smiling when she's sad, of saying she's fine when she isn't. Now, she seeks relationships where she can show up as her full self, flawed, honest, real. And when she gives that honesty to others, it gives them permission to do the same. In that mutual openness, connection deepens. Intentional relationships aren't about perfection, they're about persistence. They survive misunderstandings because both people care enough to fix them. They grow stronger because both are willing to do the work. The woman who once felt unseen knows that showing up again and again, especially when it's uncomfortable, is what keeps connection alive. Love, friendship, and belonging aren't built on grand gestures, but on quiet, consistent acts of care. True connection is never accidental. It's created through choices. The choice to notice, to reach out, to listen, to stay. Every intentional act of care builds a bridge between souls. And the woman who has walked alone knows better than anyone that bridges don't build themselves. They require hands willing to lift, hearts willing to trust, and time willing to be given freely. To be the friend you wish you had is to embody the kind of presence that once felt missing. It's to turn longing into action, to take the pain of being unseen and transform it into empathy for others. The woman who once walked through loneliness understands that connection is not something that simply happens. It is something you create. She knows what it's like to crave understanding, to hope for someone who listens without judgment, to wish for a companion who shows up without being asked. So when she steps into the lives of others, she becomes what she once needed. She listens deeply, speaks gently, and makes people feel safe enough to be themselves. Being the friend you wish you had means letting go of the idea that friendship is transactional. It's not about keeping score. Who called first, who texted last, who remembered whose birthday. It's about showing up because you want to, not because you have to. The woman who has lived through absence knows the difference between obligation and care. She knows that the smallest gestures, a simple check in, a sincere compliment, a word of encouragement, can make someone feel seen. She gives those things freely because she knows how much they matter. To become that kind of friend also means embracing vulnerability. It's easy to say you care. It's harder to reveal your own heart. Real friendship doesn't grow in perfection. It grows in honesty. The woman who once felt alone understands that connection begins when someone dares to be real. When she admits her own struggles, she gives others permission to share theirs. She doesn't pretend to have it all together. Instead, she creates space for others to let their guard down. Her openness becomes an invitation to authenticity. There is a quiet strength in choosing to give what you never received. It requires a kind of courage that doesn't always get recognized. To be the friend you wish you had means refusing to let your past disappointments define your capacity to care. It means saying, I know what it's like to be unseen, and I won't let anyone around me feel that way. The woman who carries this mindset doesn't seek pity. She seeks purpose. Her loneliness becomes fuel for kindness. Her silence becomes empathy. Her longing becomes understanding. Being that kind of friend is not always easy. There are days when she gives and doesn't receive, when her efforts go unnoticed, when her kindness is met with indifference. But she keeps showing up, not because she expects something in return, but because she believes in the value of presence. She knows that friendship is not about being perfect, it's about being there, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one else would notice if she stopped. To be the friend you wish you had also means learning to listen without fixing. The woman who has known loneliness understands that sometimes people don't need solutions. They need space. They need someone who lets them speak without interruption, who holds their pain without turning away. She has learned the art of silence, the kind that comforts instead of isolates. She doesn't rush to fill the air with advice. She lets others know that being heard is enough. That kind of listening is rare, and it's what makes her presence so powerful. Over time, her way of being becomes a form of quiet leadership. She models what connection can look like when it's intentional and compassionate. People begin to mirror her behavior. They start reaching out more, listening better, showing up more consistently. Her example spreads in ways she may never see, creating ripples of empathy and understanding. She doesn't set out to change the world, but by changing how she connects with others, she begins to. Being the friend you wish you had also requires boundaries. The woman who gives deeply knows that she must protect her own energy, too. She understands that being kind doesn't mean being available to everyone at all times. It means offering presence that is genuine, not forced. It means saying no when needed, so that her yes carries meaning. Her boundaries don't make her distant. They make her sustainable. They allow her to keep giving without losing herself in the process. In becoming the kind of friend she once longed for, she learns something profound, that the love she gives is also the love she deserves. Every act of kindness, every thoughtful gesture, every moment of compassion reflects the relationship she's built with herself. She no longer waits for others to fill her emptiness. She fills it by becoming a source of warmth for others. Through her actions, she rewrites her own story. From someone who felt unseen to someone who sees deeply. Her life becomes a quiet testament to the power of choice, the choice to turn pain into purpose, to turn isolation into understanding, to turn longing into love. She doesn't wait for connection to find her anymore. She builds it moment by moment, person by person, with intention and care. And through that process, she not only changes the lives of others, but slowly begins to heal her own.